a synthesis of history's greatest insights on being human. The privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. Here's the uncomfortable truth that ties together everything we've explored. Modern society isn't just accidentally making authentic living difficult. It's systematically designed to prevent you from becoming who you actually are. Every system you interact with profits from your inauthenticity. Your workplace needs you to perform professional roles rather than express your genuine capabilities. Social media platforms need you to present curated versions of yourself rather than your actual experience. Consumer culture needs you to feel inadequate, so you'll buy solutions to problems you didn't know you had. Political systems need you to adopt tribal identities rather than think independently. Educational institutions need you to conform to standardized metrics rather than develop your unique talents. Even healthcare systems often treat symptoms of inauthenticity, anxiety, depression, addiction, rather than addressing the systematic suppression of authentic living that creates these symptoms. Think about your typical day. How much of it is spent being genuinely yourself versus performing versions of yourself that meet external expectations? How many of your choices are based on your authentic preferences versus social programming you've internalized without questioning? The philosophers and psychologists we've studied, Jung, Sartre, Frankl, Marx, Kierkegaard, Camus, and others, all identified different aspects of this same fundamental problem. Authentic human development is systematically discouraged by social systems that require conformity, performance, and psychological manipulation to function efficiently. You're not struggling with personal inadequacy or individual character flaws. You're struggling with the natural human response to living in systems that treat authenticity as a threat to social order and economic productivity. Jung showed you how society pressures you to suppress your shadow and live from personas rather than integrated wholeness. Sartre revealed how you're encouraged to live in bad faith, pretending your choices aren't choices to avoid the anxiety of freedom. Frankl demonstrated how meaning-making is discouraged in favor of pleasure-seeking and problem-avoiding that keeps you psychologically dependent. Marx explained how work systems alienate you from your creative nature to make you more manageable and exploitable. Goffman showed how social life becomes exhausting performance that prevents authentic connection. Kahneman revealed how your decision-making is systematically biased in ways that serve others' interests rather than your authentic development. Machiavelli explained why good people are systematically excluded from positions of power, leaving authority to those who prioritize control over authentic leadership. Freud uncovered how childhood programming continues to control your adult behavior in ways that serve family and social systems rather than your individual development. Each of these insights reveals a different aspect of the same meta-problem. You're living in a world that needs you to be inauthentic to function smoothly, and that provides powerful incentives for remaining unconscious of your inauthenticity. But understanding this systemic pressure against authenticity is also the key to transcending it. Once you see how the conspiracy against your authentic self operates, you can start making conscious choices to resist it and live according to your genuine nature rather than social programming. Part 2. The Integration Project, Putting the Pieces Together. Here's what becomes clear when you synthesize all these psychological and philosophical insights. Authentic living isn't about finding your true self. It's about consciously integrating all the aspects of your experience that social conditioning has taught you to suppress, deny, or compartmentalize. Jung's individuation process requires integrating your shadow, the parts of yourself you've been taught to reject. Sartre's authentic existence requires integrating your freedom. The choices you've been pretending aren't choices. Frankl's meaningful life requires integrating your responsibility, accepting that you must create purpose rather than discover it. Marx's unalienated existence requires integrating your creative nature with your economic activity. Goffman's authentic relationships require integrating your backstage self with your front-stage performance. Kierkegaard's religious stage requires integrating your anxiety about uncertainty with your commitment to authentic choices. Camus' absurd heroism requires integrating your awareness of meaninglessness with your commitment to self-created meaning. Each philosopher points toward the same fundamental task: becoming whole by consciously including aspects of human experience that social conditioning fragments and suppresses. Think about the compartments you've created in your life. The work self that suppresses creativity and authentic expression. The social self that performs likability rather than expresses genuine personality. The family self that plays familiar roles rather than shows who you've become. The romantic self that manages impressions rather than risks vulnerability. The consumer self that seeks identity through purchases rather than self-development. The citizen self that adopts tribal positions rather than thinks independently. These compartments aren't just different aspects of a complex personality. They're defensive strategies that allow you to navigate social systems while protecting your authentic core from being completely colonized by external expectations. But maintaining these compartments requires enormous psychological energy and creates internal fragmentation that prevents you from experiencing yourself as a coherent, integrated person. The integration project involves consciously choosing which aspects of social conditioning serve your authentic development and which aspects diminish it. You can't eliminate all social roles and expectations. You need some level of social coordination to function in the world. But you can choose to inhabit your roles more consciously, bringing more of your authentic self to your performances while maintaining appropriate boundaries between your inner experience and outer expression. Integration means becoming someone who can work professionally while expressing creativity, engage socially while maintaining genuine personality, participate in family systems while continuing individual development, and navigate consumer culture while preserving authentic values. The goal isn't to become antisocial or reject all external structure. It's to become someone who engages with social systems from a position of conscious choice rather than unconscious compliance, bringing your authentic nature to your social roles rather than disappearing into those roles completely. This integration work is never finished. It's an ongoing process of conscious choice-making that continues throughout your life as you encounter new social pressures and develop greater self-awareness. Part 3. The Consciousness Practices. Daily Resistance to Inauthenticity. Here's how you actually implement authentic living on a daily basis. Through specific practices that build your capacity to recognize and resist the systematic pressures against authenticity while strengthening your connection to your genuine nature. Shadow work practice. Regularly identify qualities you dislike in other people and ask whether you're projecting aspects of yourself you haven't integrated. When you have strong emotional reactions to others' behavior, investigate whether they're displaying qualities you possess but have learned to suppress. This isn't about becoming self-critical or assuming all judgment is projection. It's about using your emotional reactions as information about parts of yourself that need conscious integration rather than unconscious suppression. Choice awareness practice. Throughout the day, catch yourself saying, "I have to," and replace it with, "I choose to." Notice when you're making decisions based on social expectations rather than authentic preferences, and experiment with small choices that align more closely with who you actually are. This builds your capacity to recognize the freedom you actually have in situations where you've been operating on autopilot or social programming. Meaning creation practice. Instead of looking for activities that feel inherently meaningful, practice bringing meaning to activities through the quality of attention and intention you invest in them. Find ways to express your authentic values through whatever work and relationships you're currently engaged in. This develops your capacity to create purpose rather than waiting for purpose to be provided by external circumstances or authorities. Performance awareness practice. Notice when you're performing roles versus when you're being authentically yourself. Experiment with bringing more of your genuine personality to contexts where you typically perform social characters, and observe how people respond to increased authenticity. This builds your tolerance for the social discomfort that sometimes accompanies authentic expression, while revealing that most people appreciate genuineness more than perfect social performance. Anxiety. Acceptance practice. When you feel anxious about decisions or uncertain about outcomes, practice making choices anyway based on your authentic values rather than trying to eliminate the anxiety through endless analysis or seeking external validation. This develops your capacity to act authentically despite uncertainty, which is essential for living according to your genuine nature rather than social safety. Present moment practice. Regularly return your attention to your actual current experience rather than getting lost in mental stories about past failures or future anxieties. Notice the difference between your direct experience and the narratives you create about that experience. This builds your capacity to live from authentic present moment awareness rather than from unconscious psychological programming or social conditioning. These practices aren't about achieving some perfect state of authenticity. They're about building psychological skills that help you navigate the ongoing tension between authentic living and social functioning with greater consciousness and choice. Part 4. The Relationship Revolution: Authentic Connection in a Performative World. Here's where authentic living gets really challenging. You can't do it alone. Human beings are fundamentally social creatures, and authentic development requires relationships where you can practice being genuinely yourself rather than performing socially acceptable versions of yourself. But most people are trapped in the same performance-based approach to relationships that you're trying to escape. They're managing impressions, avoiding vulnerability, and seeking relationships that enhance their social image rather than support their authentic development. This creates a chicken and egg problem. You need authentic relationships to support authentic living, but you need to live authentically to create authentic relationships. Most people get stuck in this loop, waiting for others to be authentic first while continuing to perform safety and social acceptability. The relationship revolution starts with your willingness to risk social discomfort by being more genuine than social conventions typically allow. This doesn't mean oversharing, being inappropriate, or eliminating all social boundaries. It means gradually introducing more of your actual thoughts, feelings, and experiences into your interactions while maintaining respect for others' comfort levels. In romantic relationships, this means sharing your authentic struggles, desires, and ambitions rather than just the parts of yourself that make you seem like an ideal partner. It means expressing genuine emotions rather than managing your partner's emotional experience. It means maintaining your individual development rather than merging completely into couple identity. In friendships, this means having conversations about things you actually care about rather than just socially safe topics. It means sharing your real opinions rather than saying what you think others want to hear. It means being willing to disagree, set boundaries, and occasionally disappoint people rather than prioritizing harmony above honesty. In family relationships, this means gradually updating the roles you play to reflect who you've become rather than who you were when those roles were established. It means expressing your adult perspectives and choices even when they conflict with family expectations or traditions. In professional relationships, this means bringing more of your genuine capabilities and interests to your work while maintaining appropriate professional boundaries. It means communicating authentically about your needs and limitations rather than pretending to be infinitely adaptable. The paradox of authentic relationships is that they often start with increased conflict and discomfort as people adjust to your greater genuineness. But they evolve into deeper connection and mutual support as others feel permission to be more authentic themselves. Not everyone will appreciate your increased authenticity. Some people are invested in maintaining performative relationships because authentic ones require more emotional risk and psychological flexibility. But the relationships that survive and thrive with greater authenticity are the ones worth maintaining and developing. The goal isn't to have authentic relationships with everyone. That's neither possible nor necessary. The goal is to have a few relationships where you can practice being genuinely yourself, which provides the psychological support you need to maintain authenticity in other contexts where full authenticity isn't appropriate or safe. Part 5. The work-life integration, bringing authenticity to economic necessity. Here's one of the biggest challenges to authentic living. You need money to survive, but most economic systems require you to suppress your authentic nature to earn that money. How do you maintain psychological integrity while participating in work structures that reward performance over authenticity? The traditional advice is to find your passion or follow your calling, but this assumes that meaningful work is available to everyone and that economic necessity won't force compromises between authenticity and survival. For most people, this advice is either privileged or naive. A more realistic approach is work-life integration, finding ways to express your authentic nature through whatever work you're doing while maintaining clear boundaries between your economic activity and your core identity. First, distinguish between your job and your work. Your job is what you do to earn money. Your work is how you express your authentic capabilities and contribute to things you care about. Sometimes these align, but often they don't, and that's okay as long as you're conscious about the distinction. You can have a job that pays bills while doing work that expresses your nature through volunteer activities, creative projects, or relationships that engage your genuine interests and abilities. Second, look for ways to bring authentic values to inauthentic work structures. Even if your job doesn't align perfectly with your values, you can often find ways to express integrity, creativity, helpfulness, or excellence within whatever role you're playing. This doesn't mean becoming a martyr or working beyond reasonable boundaries. It means finding ways to maintain your sense of authentic engagement even in work contexts that don't naturally support authenticity. Third, use work challenges as opportunities for authentic development rather than just obstacles to happiness. Difficult colleagues can teach you about boundary setting. Boring tasks can develop your capacity for mindful attention. Stressful situations can build your resilience and problem-solving abilities. This reframes work problems as raw material for personal growth, rather than just sources of suffering to be endured until you can escape to real life. Fourth, maintain activities outside work that engage your authentic nature. If your job doesn't provide opportunities for creativity, find creative outlets. If your work doesn't involve helping people, find ways to contribute to causes you care about. If your professional role doesn't challenge you intellectually, pursue learning that does. The goal isn't to make your job perfect, it's to ensure that your authentic nature has adequate expression and development opportunities, even if your economic activity doesn't provide them. Finally, plan strategically for increasing alignment between your economic activity and your authentic values over time. This might mean developing skills, building networks, saving money, or creating opportunities that allow for greater integration between who you are and how you earn money. But this planning happens alongside authentic living in your current circumstances, rather than postponing authenticity until your external conditions become ideal. You can live authentically while working toward greater external alignment, rather than waiting for perfect alignment before beginning authentic living. Part 6. The Cultural Influence Audit, Recognizing What's Programming You. Here's something most people never do but absolutely should. Conduct a systematic audit of the cultural influences that are shaping your thoughts, values, and aspirations without your conscious awareness. You're constantly being programmed by media, advertising, social groups, family systems, educational institutions, and political movements that have their own agendas for how you should think, feel, and behave. Most of this programming happens below your conscious awareness, but it profoundly influences your sense of what's normal, desirable, and possible for your life. Media consumption audit. Track what you read, watch, and listen to for a week. Notice what messages these sources are communicating about success, relationships, happiness, and the good life. Ask yourself, are these messages aligned with my authentic values? Or am I unconsciously adopting values that serve someone else's interests? Most media content is designed to make you feel inadequate, so you'll consume more content or buy products. Recognizing this can help you choose information sources that support your authentic development rather than undermine it. Social environment audit. Notice how you feel about yourself after spending time with different people or groups. Which relationships make you feel more like yourself, and which ones make you feel like you need to perform or suppress aspects of your personality? This isn't about cutting off everyone who challenges you, but about recognizing which social influences support your authentic development and which ones diminish it. Consumer pattern audit. Examine your purchasing decisions over the past few months. How many were based on authentic needs versus manufactured desires created by advertising? How much of your identity is tied to what you own rather than who you are? Consumer culture profits from your dissatisfaction with yourself and your circumstances. Recognizing this can help you make purchasing decisions based on genuine utility rather than identity management or social signaling. Belief system audit. Identify the core beliefs you hold about success, relationships, morality, and life purpose. Ask yourself, where did these beliefs come from? Did I choose them consciously, or did I absorb them from family, culture, or social groups? This isn't about rejecting all inherited beliefs, but about consciously choosing which beliefs serve your authentic development and which ones limit it. Goal and aspiration audit. Examine the goals you're pursuing and the life you're trying to create. Are these based on your genuine interests and values, or on social expectations about what your life should look like by now? Many people spend years pursuing goals that were unconsciously adopted from cultural programming rather than consciously chosen based on authentic preferences. The point of these audits isn't to eliminate all external influence. That's impossible and would leave you isolated from valuable cultural resources. The point is to become conscious of influences that are operating unconsciously so you can choose which ones to embrace and which ones to resist. Authentic living requires ongoing vigilance about the cultural forces that are constantly trying to shape you according to their needs rather than your authentic nature. Part 7. The Authentic Life, Practical Synthesis for Conscious Living. After exploring all these insights about psychology, philosophy, and social systems, here's how you actually live authentically on a daily basis, through conscious choice-making that integrates self-awareness, social wisdom, and commitment to your genuine development despite external pressures. Start with radical self-honesty. Most people lie to themselves so consistently they don't recognize it as lying. Begin telling yourself the truth about your actual motivations, genuine feelings, real desires, and authentic limitations. This doesn't mean self-criticism, it means self-awareness that serves conscious choice-making. Practice selective authenticity. You don't need to be completely authentic in every context. That's neither possible nor wise. But you do need some relationships and activities where you can practice being genuinely yourself. Choose contexts for authenticity strategically rather than trying to be authentic everywhere simultaneously. Integrate your contradictions rather than resolving them. You contain multitudes, different aspects of yourself that may seem contradictory, but are all authentic parts of your complex human nature. The goal isn't to become perfectly consistent, but to consciously embrace your complexity rather than suppressing parts of yourself that don't fit simple narratives. Create meaning through engagement rather than seeking it through analysis. Meaning emerges from authentic engagement with activities, relationships, and causes, that resonate with your genuine nature. You can't think your way into meaningful living. You have to choose your way into it through conscious action, aligned with your authentic values. Accept anxiety as the price of freedom rather than trying to eliminate it. Authentic living requires making choices without guarantees, which creates anxiety. This anxiety isn't a problem to be solved. It's a signal that you're confronting genuine freedom and taking real responsibility for your existence. Build tolerance for social discomfort. Authentic expression sometimes creates awkwardness, disappointment, or conflict as others adjust to your genuineness. This discomfort is temporary and usually leads to deeper connection with people who appreciate authenticity and natural separation from people who don't. Maintain perspective on temporary setbacks. Authentic living isn't a destination you reach. It's an ongoing practice that includes mistakes, reversions to old patterns, and periods of confusion or uncertainty. These aren't failures. They're part of the process of conscious development. Remember that authenticity serves others as well as yourself. When you live genuinely, you give others permission to be genuine too. Your authenticity contributes to creating social environments where other people can also live more authentically. The authentic life isn't about achieving some perfect state of self-actualization. It's about choosing to live consciously rather than unconsciously, making decisions based on your genuine nature rather than social programming, and taking responsibility for creating a life that reflects your authentic values rather than inherited expectations. This is challenging work that happens over years and decades rather than weeks and months. But it's also the most important work you can do because it's the difference between living your own life and living someone else's idea of what your life should be. If this entire exploration has changed how you see the possibilities for authentic living, remember that awareness is always the first step toward choice. You can't choose to live authentically until you recognize the ways you've been living inauthentically. Your journey toward authentic living is unique because your authentic nature is unique. But the challenges you face, social pressure, psychological programming, systemic resistance to authenticity, are universal human challenges that every conscious person must navigate. You're not alone in this work, even when it feels lonely. Every person who chooses authenticity over performance, consciousness over unconsciousness, and genuine development over social conformity contributes to creating a world where authentic living becomes more possible for everyone. The choice to live authentically despite systemic pressure to live inauthentically is both a personal choice and a political act. It's your individual journey toward wholeness and your contribution to collective human consciousness. Your authentic life is waiting for you to claim it. But nobody else can live it for you. Not your family, not society, not even the wisest philosophers and psychologists who have mapped the territory. You have to walk the path yourself, one conscious choice at a time, for the rest of your life. That's what it means to be authentically human.